here by Northwestern University. There's a little sign laying out the campus. But they can create a thing from Google Maps just for them on campus. A special app with inside a Google Northwestern app. They have Campus Navigator. And then they have for visitors. And they should have alumni app. Northwestern University alumni app. And they should have that. And then they should have one for the public. One for alumni, one for students, and then one for the general public. But they're building a stadium, Waste Management going by. But they're building a stadium up here. And I don't get it. 25,000 people. So you don't get enough room for the locals. Don't they want to build up people coming to the stadium from the surrounding suburbs? Wilmette and all this, but for the basketball games and everything else? I don't understand. The University of Arizona, the student population, we have, 30,000 at the time, or a little over that with grad school. But the whole point is, we had 16,000 seats at the basketball stadium. It was sold out every year. They had a lottery for tickets, but most of the tickets were held by the people who lived in Tucson. Most of the tickets were held by people that lived in Tucson. And they had the Wildcat, the University of Arizona Wildcat newspaper. All the businesses in the community that sold to the students advertised in the student newspaper. So my friend Chris worked for the student newspaper. I don't even know why he left. He could have made it even more prominent and distributed it into the foothills and other places. So the student newspaper, people in the town used to read the student newspaper. Northwestern has a radio station that's on FM, and it plays alternative rock. Alternative rock. I'm going on a side street here, but it plays alternative rock. I used to listen to the Northwestern radio station. It's like 91 point something, but they have an FM radio station, and it actually is really good, but it's a student-run station. Northwestern has its own FM radio station, if people don't know. I used to listen to it all the time. This goes back in the late 80s and 90s. I used to listen to it. And it was a good radio station. They played these bands that really you didn't hear much of. And so I would assume this is an art college, that they would have a robust music and, theater and everything else. And so I don't know how Northwestern plans to grow. The thing is, they're pretty much landlocked, and they're here on the lakefront, since I'm down here, and I don't know what they plan on with eminent domain. And they need to plan this years out, but they need to buy property and eventually expand the university. Now, two ways to expand it. One way is to go vertical, and if they want to do vertical expansion, then they can do vertical expansion. Or they can do horizontal, or a mixture of horizontal and vertical. But truly, they have to figure out, there's the SAE house. So we tried to go to a fraternity here in high school. When we were seniors, we tried to come down for a fraternity party. We didn't get in, but they can invite the high school down for a non-alcoholic fraternity party, come down and do recruiting for the high school. Do you think Northwestern University does that? But they can work with the fraternal system for recruiting. And when people come down for family weekend, or when the recruits come down to visit the campus, they can work with Greek Life, truly, and the Greek Student Council, which is all the fraternities and sororities, and they can invite the students, the recruits, over for parties. And they get somebody who is a relationship manager for the fraternity or sorority. And so they can invite them in and show them what campus life is like. And so it's not only for the athletes, which they should. The athletes, usually the recruits, they end up visiting and they end up going to the fraternity parties, like famous Bears. One of my friends whose father was a Chicago Bear, he came to the University of Arizona and he went to the Fiji house for a party and that. And he was there for a weekend visiting as a football recruit. And they usually take him and they set him up with a really cute girl. And I used to know some of the girls who worked in the recruiting center for the athletes. So they had girls and guys. And they set up the guys with really cute girls. And the girls would take them around for the weekend. Truly. And show them to the fraternities and other things going on campus. They were responsible for, introducing them to everything on campus. So, anyways, it's the same thing. So Greek life can work with the university in a formal sense. And they can have high school kids come down and they can come down and check out the fraternity. They can talk about Rush Week. And the fraternities can go out to the high schools. Truly, the high schools, even sometimes to the elementary school, think about planning the future at Northwestern. And here they can go out and talk about, here's a big archway as an entranceway, but they can talk about life at Northwestern University. And they go around, these senior fraternity members are community relations specialists, and each fraternity should have one, each sorority. And they go around to the local schools and they introduce Greek life and they introduce what it's like to be in a fraternity, a sorority. And they also introduce what it's like to be in a fraternity, a sorority as a Northwestern University student. University of Arizona had the largest Greek system in the United States. Yes, we were number one. We had the most members. Our houses were the biggest member-wise. So the University of Arizona, of all the country in the all the fraternal systems in the United States, the university had the largest fraternity sorority system in the United States. The most members. Who had the most houses? University of Illinois at that time. They had more fraternal houses. We had less houses, but we had more members. The University of Illinois had actually the most Greek houses. They had the largest number of houses for fraternity and sorority of any college in the United States. Now, my ex, Jennifer Kim, she was an independent, meaning you're not in the fraternal system. And I don't think her brother was in the Caddy house, so that can be a fraternity itself. The Caddy fraternity can be part of the Greek system. It should be. But anyways, so it was a big deal on our campus. I mean, you have thousands and thousands and thousands of alumni all over the country that were in the fraternity sorority system from the University of Illinois and the University of Arizona. And the funny thing is, it was awesome because they used to play in the tournament all the time. They played a couple times in the tournament, and I loved the games, and I think U of I won both times. I think U of I actually won both times. But it was great, this rivalry between the University of Arizona and the University of Illinois. That's when Bill Self was there, and they were making the tournament and going deep every year. But, again, I don't know what they're doing. They're trying to build this out, but they're on beautiful lakefront. And they used to run wrestling camp down here. So the Northwestern University, Tony Gassman, who was in my high school, he went to wrestling camp here. So they can run football camp, wrestling camp, soccer camp, all the sports programs. The baseball program in that can run all kinds of summer camps. Not only summer camps, but they can run camps during the spring break when high schools have their spring break. The sports, basically, the athletic department can run all kinds of camps. But that's not only camps for them. They can have all kinds of academic camps. No university does that, but Northwestern, University of Chicago, and that, they can run, and University of Illinois, they can run academic camps as well. Academic camps. So they can come down and run academic camps, and you can come down over the summer and you can be part of an academic camp. You can be part of the band camp. Northwestern has a band, and you can come down and they have music camp at Northwestern. They have theater camp. They have a huge theater department. They can have theater camp, acting camp. This would be for people in high school, but they can also offer these to adults. And so they can have, these community camps that they offer at Northwestern as part of adult education for acting, getting a certification in something. Like I did at Northwestern, I got a CFP certification, Northwestern Adult Education. University of Chicago Adult Education, I got a certification in finance. So they can offer all kinds of adult education, and that's how they engage the community through adult education. These are designation and certification programs, or educational. The culinary school, if they have one, they can offer culinary classes to the community. No one certification, but you can come in and take a class on learning Italian food. And it gives you history and so on. And with that, Italian wines and Italian sparkling. They don't call it champagne. It's Prosecco is their champagne, or their sparkling is Prosecco. So they call it Prosecco, but it's champagne or sparkling. And they can do that here. And so it brings in all kinds of revenue, and it gives jobs to the students. And it is community relationship. Unbelievable community relationship. And so they can build these things here at Northwestern, and they can do things that aren't being done anywhere in the country. And they need to figure out how they're going to set themselves apart, because there's a lot of top academic schools, but it's the nuances that set you apart. The University of Arizona understood that, and they were trying to do things on campus to make their experience for a student unique. So they had things that other universities did, but they also had things that were unique to them to make the student experience unique. They're on the lakefront. They can teach yachting, sailing, boating classes. They can have all kinds of aquatic life. You can be a biologist, a marine biologist, but a freshwater marine biologist. A freshwater marine biologist. So they can do all kinds of, they can have Navy training here. They used to have Navy ships at Navy Pier, but they can go out on the water and learn how boats run and everything. And they can have all kinds of training. So all kinds of marine. You can have engineering and manufacturing for the boating industry. And you have Lake Michigan. They can have a road team. Michael, my roommate, went to Syracuse University, and he should have. University of Arizona didn't have a road team. We're in the desert, but they could have. There were places they'd had to travel to, but we could have had a ski team at the University of Arizona at Mount Lemmon. They have skiing at Mount Lemmon, and we could have had a ski team, but they didn't. But they can have a ski team here. You have to travel to Alpine or Wilmot, but they can have a ski team, and it could be just a club sport to start out with, and they can have a club sport ski team, and they compete with West Coast and East Coast schools, because both West Coast and East Coast schools have ski teams. Down south, they won't, but they'll have road teams in that, and you can have a road team right here on let's see, I'll turn down here. But you can have a road team right here at the university. So they can do rowing and they can do all kinds of swimming and so on. So truly, they can have a scuba diving team and water polo, you name it. So they can really build out this engagement, and that means there's shops in the community. You would have a scuba shop and other things that they would open up, and Northwestern would drive small businesses in the community. They did a nice expansion of the downtown. They did a renovation of the downtown that's by the university, and it is beautiful. The new theater and that, when they opened. Now, that was a while ago, but again, it was a smart investment because it's part of campus life. And so Evanston makes out, the more prominent Northwestern is, the more prominent Evanston is. And they need to start co-branding with Evanston, Illinois. Truly, with Evanston, Illinois. Here's Ryan Fieldhouse. But I don't know what they're doing with the new stadium because it doesn't make sense to me. Why just 25,000 seats? Wouldn't you want to engage the whole North Shore and offer and go on and have people that sell season tickets to basketball and many other sports at Northwestern? And that brings in the community, and those people that buy those tickets, they have little kids and they go to the games. So they have a lot of ways to integrate themselves into the community. A nice little hoop court on campus, outdoor. So I don't know. It's a little different. Like the U of A campus, it's busy basically all 24 hours a day. There's activity, but much bigger school too. But anyways, I don't understand. I've taken campus classes at downtown campus at Northwestern, and I've taken classes, both economics, and I've taken classes on campus for economics here at Northwestern. So they have a good economics department. So anyways, I like going to school up here. And I did it over the summer. And when I was at Charlie's, I was taking 400, 500 class in economics in the downtown campus. But that class, I had to quit because Charlie's, I was doing 120 hours or so. And here's the Northwestern, the temporary field, Northwestern Medical Field. Okay, Martin Stadium. Okay. So it's beautiful right here on the lakefront. And, they have a presence that they have a great opportunity. The only thing here, and I'll tell you the worst thing about campus, and I've been on the campus at winter for things I've done down here. And the thing that's bad is they don't have any trees or anything, and the freaking wind coming off the campus, off the water, is unbelievably cold. It is so freaking cold. The campus gets incredibly cold. But having trees that actually have leaves, so I can't go this way, but if they have trees that have leaves, healthy, wealthy, and stealth. Okay. So you're stealth healthy, stealth wealth. Okay. So meaning you're humble. Okay. But they have the ability, I guess this goes along the lakefront, but the whole point is they need to do something with the campus to dampen the breeze, and you have to have trees that actually have leaves during the winter, and that's what evergreens are. They're forever green, right? So even in the winter, that I don't understand, they need to dampen, that's when they need to dampen the breeze. And so it gets unbelievably cold on campus from that lake breeze. And so they need to do certain things that naturally dampen the wind and keep campus, and evergreens keep things warmer. evergreens keep things warmer. So they tend to be active even during the winter. They're less active, but they're still active, and they tend to radiate and keep things a little bit warmer. So they can do things to really boost this campus, because it's kind of dull. But I don't know why they don't emphasize the lakefront. Oh, here's the building. Is this the library? It's cool. I haven't been on campus for so long. I don't know where anything is anymore. And so, but again, they have great ability to, build out this university and make it world-renowned. So I have no idea. And this is kind of cool. They got the basketball court. I guess this must be a dormitory. I didn't know where their dormitories are. So, but anyways, they have a great ability to build this out, and they should co-brand with the village of Evanston. And that means they already co-brand with the state of Illinois. But again, they have the ability to do this co-branding, and they should work very closely with the village. As far as I knew before, they didn't have the greatest relationship with each other, but they should build a good relationship between the village and the university. The University of Arizona has a very good relationship with the city of Tucson. I know that for a fact. So they do things, and this pumps all kinds of money into the local community. All these students coming down here, not only students, faculty, staff. This brings in tons and tons of money into the Evanston community. So I don't know how they're building out their downtown area. And there has to be some type of interchange between the downtown area, where you can get this great campus life, that they go out to the restaurants and to the stores and everything, because around here you don't have this. And part of campus life is the culture that's part of the town of Evanston. Like they have at Indiana University, they have the bike race and that. They tried to intertwine, the life around campus. Like Jen, she went to a church that was off campus, that was mostly just people that lived in Champaign-Urbana. So she didn't go to an on-campus church. She didn't go to a church with a lot of students. She went to a local church, and the church was primarily all white. I think she was like the only Asian. But she felt very comfortable. She grew up in Skokie. Everybody she grew up with, that she lived around, was white. And she said she loved growing up in Skokie, in her neighborhood and that. She loved growing up in the community. Her family was well treated and everything. So she said very good things about growing up in the Skokie and going to school in Skokie. And in her school, they had a lot of Asians. But where she lived, there wasn't. And there was a synagogue down the street. And we used to talk about it. And then one of my friends from ping pong was her neighbor. And we saw him outside once and went across. He used to be with Engelbert, who was this Asian guy who taught ping pong. And Joe, we went across and we talked, and Joe's like, oh, I've known Jennifer since she was a little girl. And it was kind of cool. So we had all this deep connections, that I knew a lot of people that knew her for long periods of her life, that I found out. We just had so many people that we were interconnected with, from her work at Ernst & Young and others that I was friends with from the University of Arizona or other places. And so much of our friends overlapped, our connections overlapped. So downtown Evanston, I'm wondering where are all the shops in that, and where do the students do all their shopping, and where do they hang out at the restaurants, and where did they do this? I was in an Asian restaurant with one of my friends that was here in downtown Evanston. I'm not going into that, but it was a good time. It was a nice, small, little Asian restaurant in downtown Evanston. So I don't know where they intertwine. Here's Evanston Hospital. And so it's part of the university hospital system. I would assume Northwestern would have invested in Evanston Hospital and in the community. And so they can have people from Feinberg in medical school work here and volunteer here or work here. So this is University of Chicago. So they have a partnership with the University of Chicago, and you would have Evanston medical students from Feinberg volunteering at Lurie's or working at Lurie's, working at Northwestern Hospital downtown, working here at the Evanston Hospital. So it embeds them into the medical community, and they do the grunt work. They can be the janitors. They need to know how to clean things so they can get and do custodial arts and everything else, because they need to know the functionality of the hospital and how things are cared for and everything, because that affects patients. So it's good that they would do the grunt work. So here, I guess, so I don't know if Northwestern and University of Chicago and the university, so maybe so, and UIC, maybe UIC is part of it too. UIC Chicago, UI Health is part of the university network. And so University of Chicago, University of Illinois Chicago, Northwestern are all part of the university hospital network. It would make sense they build out their own network. And that means when Northwestern students are downtown and something happens, they can go to hospital, or I should say, when they're in Chicago and they need to go to the University of Chicago for some reason. So they can do that, part of the student health. So I don't know how they're building this out. So I don't see the downtown area and how far that is from the campus. But what is the interconnection between the downtown Evanston and the university? I'll let the cars go, they got important things to do. I'm the bum who has no job. So anyways, here's a donut store and other things. Here's the bank, Caldwell Banker Realty, and students buy property in that. Here's a flower shop and so on. They have to open up bank accounts. I had numerous bank accounts from the banks around campus. So I opened up at a credit union as well. There was a credit union, but also I was part of other banks in Tucson. So I had many bank accounts in Tucson. So Green Bay Road. So this goes in here. I don't know how the student population integrates into this, how the faculty integrate into this, how the staff integrate into this area. Here's Chase Bank. So I don't know, but they have to build out the integration. So it builds out campus life. With the U of A, you step off campus and there's University Drive and on the U of A, and there's all kinds of restaurants and small shops. And so here's a Dunkin' Donuts. It's not that far. But I don't know how any of this integrates into the university. And I don't know if they advertise in a Northwestern paper or on a Northwestern FM radio station. And WGN can buy college radio stations. They can own them. They can be in partnership with the university. So they can give the university economies of scale and help reduce cost. And help it with operational and compliance and everything else. Here's a Whole Foods. I don't know where the students go shopping. There's no grocery stores by the campus. So I have no idea of how they're integrating all this, and Wilmette's right down the street. So again, I have no idea how they're building out the university and how they're intertwining with the community. And then you have Lake Forest College, and then they had another school, again in Braniff or something. But again, they had these schools. I'll let this guy go, and another important, person. I'm just a bum. So, anyways, building out this infrastructure and that, I don't know how they're intertwining, because Lake Forest College is down there, but you never hear about Lake Forest College. But Lake Forest College has a graduate school. It's very good, and they have an undergrad. And I don't know why they're not building out. You never hear anything about Lake Forest College. They, I think, have a football program and everything. Illinois Bone and Joint Institute. But you never hear anything about Lake Forest College as a program. And some things, Lake Forest College, with club sports, they can play Northwestern. So club sports, they can compete. Northwestern can compete against Lake Forest College and DePaul and University of Chicago in their club sports. So they build out the club sports between all the colleges like UIC and others, North Park College and Seminary. See, club sports is different. You have to build out the network. So if you start a club sport, whether it's chess club, and it's a club sport, you play students from Lake Forest, you play students from DePaul, students from University of Illinois, Chicago, North Park College, Northeastern. My brother went to Northeastern University, and so they play them with club sports. And so club sports is the local compared to the collegiate. So club sports are where all the colleges really interact around here with each other and within the state, within the club sports. Like we used to go up to Arizona State and play them with our club rugby team. We had a rugby team that was club, and we played UCLA and USC. They had club rugby teams. And so even with club sports at the U of A, we traveled out of state. And then we had a club hockey team too, and they won the club championship for hockey. Yeah, the University of Arizona had a club hockey team. And so my friends, I don't know if they have a club hockey team. That's for the students that are not in the collegiate program. So club sports are big. And it's for the students who want to be student athletes, but they do it through club sports. And they're not through the collegiate system. So that system needs to be built out. And the NCAA, truly, the National Collegiate Association, Athletic Association, they need to build out its club sport networks, and it needs to interact with the NAIA. We didn't have any club sports at Benedictine. We should have. I played Frisbee football all the time. I love Frisbee football. I played Frisbee golf at the University of Arizona. Frisbee golf is fun as heck. I played Frisbee golf, you have Frisbee baseball, yes. And so there's a lot of Frisbee sports. And so, again, but we didn't have any club sports at Benedictine. No one was building out the club sports. And they should have built it out, because you have the traditional collegiate system, and then you have the club system. Somebody needs to build out the club system. And it needs to get, so these are non-scholarship people. But again, it's great for the students to participate in all forms of club sports. And so they really need to make that a formal network and really work on building out the club sports. And that's chess club, that can be debate club, truly debate club, model UN. They can have model UN at the college level as a club sport. So again, they need to build out. So the club sports, unlike the collegiate sports, builds out merit or academic sports. It builds out, the club arena is very big in academic sports. So whether math competitions and all that, that's all club sports. Now, if you do win in club sports, you can get merit scholarships. Universities will give winners, if you win these club sports and math and so on, they will give you a merit scholarship to universities, depending on what club sport, but they will give you this academic scholarship, a merit scholarship, not an athletic scholarship, if you're a very good at a club sport that is academic. So I don't know if they do it for chess club, but they do it for some other academic club sports. The university actually gives formal merit scholarships. So you could get a merit scholarship for music. People get band scholarships. So again, I don't know how they're building out. There's a lot of colleges on the North Shore. So Northwestern's one. Lake Forest is another. Roger Park is right on the North Shore of Chicago. Roger Park is the North Shore of Chicago, and it's Loyola University. So you got 3 colleges right there, and there's Barrett. I don't know if it still exists. That would be a 4th, and I don't know. And they're more on the north side of Chicago. So on the north side of Chicago, you have North Park College and Seminary and Seminary School as well. And then you have Northeastern University, and that's on the north side of Chicago. So more towards the North Shore. So I don't know how they're building this out, but there's a lot of academic institutions. And so, academic prominence was big on the North Shore. New Trier was rated as one of the best institutions, high school institutions in the country, and so were we at Deerfield. At times we were considered one of the top high school institutions in the country. And then there's Loyola Academy. It's one of the top private schools in the country. So there is a lot of high schools that are very prominent. Walter Payton is the city of Chicago. It's one of the best public high schools in the country as well. So North Shore had a lot of prominence. We won the Governor's Award or the President's Award at Wilmot Junior High. So there's a lot of academic prominence through the North Shore. And then there's Country Day up here, which is a private school my friend Jonathan went to. And I think it's a Jewish, mainly a lot of Jewish kids attend it. It's a private high school called Country Day. Just like Lake Forest Academy is a private high school. My friend who is Asian, he went to, Charles, he went to Lake Forest Academy. It's a private high school. People don't hear about it, but we used to kid about it at Deerfield High School because we called them the little sisters of the poor when it came to football, because we would crush them. Basically, I guess there was some scrimmages and we just crush them. So we used to make fun of them because they didn't have that good of a football program. But academically, no one hears about it. But Lake Forest Academy is a high school that's extremely prominent. It's expensive. It's in Lake Forest, and it's a private high school. And my friend Charles went to it, and he married a white girl. And she is the head prosecutor for the state of Ohio. She was the head prosecutor for the state of Ohio. So I guess she was the Attorney General for the state of Ohio, something like that. So anyways, she's white, he's Asian. But the reason he married an Asian girl, I'll just tell you, he went to Lake Forest Academy. Now, he went to an Asian church, but everybody at Lake Forest Academy, primarily all white, like 90-something% all white. And so he grew up around all white girls. So that's what he was used to. He didn't date anyone from church, and he didn't really hang out a lot with people from church. And so he went to Lakeview, Lakeview Church. But anyways, he didn't really hang out a lot. He hung out with all his friends from high school at Lake Forest Academy. And all those kids were all white. And so he married a white girl. It makes perfect sense. Like Jen, she went to the University of Illinois, and she went to a church that was all white. Now here, afterwards, she went to, but everyone she worked with at Ernst & Young, primarily all white. She had lots of Asian friends, but all her work environment, and she went to white churches and that, and she liked white guys. Because the thing is, and Gladwell talks about it, it's part of your environment. And I was trying to explain this to my other friend who grew up on the North Shore, was Asian, who was having an identity crisis. I said, you and him have different skin colors, but you grew up in the same environment. And so you are the same people. Now, you have some cultural different habits, but truly outside the house and everything, you're basically a part of your environment. So if you're an Asian person and you grow up on the North Shore and everybody is in this culture, then you grow up. I have black friends that grow up and everybody they're around and they talk and they sound like white people. That's how they grew up. That's the accent they get. It's an accent. Just like I had a white kid who grew up in the ghetto and he talked like all the black kids. And if you didn't see him, he was white, but you swear he was black. He even walked that way from behind like a black person. And a black person in the ghetto has a walk. People don't understand that, but yes, they have a unique walk. So they have a unique accent, and they have a unique walk, and they have these habits. So, and I found this more out when I was talking to my British friends and my friends that grew up in Boston, in South Boston, Southie. They're, kind of the low-end white people. And so they tend to grow up with a more rougher, etiquette, kind of. They're not hesitant, like in Good Will Hunting, why it's rolled. Those kids grew up from South Boston. So throwing down and fighting, that's no big deal to them. That happens. And so they grow up more rough and tumble. But again, they don't have to. And I think there needs to be things to improve the environment and more relying on physical skills for, playing sports and using your mind for academics and writing and other things that needs, and this is what the Boys and Girls Club and the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and so on is supposed to help them develop properly. But again, they tend to have very good street sense or grow up very street savvy. So, and then people can grow up very naive when they're sheltered. So they tend to be a little bit more street savvy. So if you're recruiting from the CIA, say, and you want somebody who's more street savvy, you need to understand the environment they grew up in, and those people will have more street sense than book smart. So you want people that are more street savvy if they're going to work on the street or work with the street. They need to be very street savvy. They need to understand the street culture and street environment. And so you want to recruit from there, like Will from Good Will Hunting. He was going to go work for an intelligence agency, I guess, or I think that's what was recruiting him and so on. But the whole point is he had book smart and he had a lot of street smart. And what does Peter Lynch teach you in his things? Peter Lynch seems like he grew up with a lot of street smarts, because how he analyzes things is unlike a lot of wealthy individuals that didn't grow up with the street smarts. So Peter Lynch, I would assume he spent a lot of time in the streets, because he sits in malls, he goes in places, and he does a lot of on-site. And I've been with other managers and they don't tend to do that. And so Peter Lynch grew up with a lot of street savvy. And so he integrated that into his analysis. And the Magellan Fund beat everybody, beat the S&P 500 every year. And he consistently beat everybody. And one year he was having a bad year and he drifted outside the portfolio. Should have never done that. But the whole point is, he is a genius at what he did, and he did make a mistake. But again, he is very good at what he does, and he is very street savvy, and he integrates that into his analysis. So when you're listening to it, the way he goes about it is more of a street savvy analysis. So he's more of a nitty-gritty, get his hands dirty type of person. Truly, he gets his hands dirty. He's a fund manager running, at the time, the largest mutual fund in the world. Truly, it was the largest mutual fund in the world. And Fidelity was the largest mutual fund company in the world. And at that time, Vanguard grew to surpass it. But the whole point is that he is a very hands-on, very touchy-feely type person. And so he grows up with a lot of street savvy. And he uses that as his competitive edge to beat other fund managers. And so when he talks about the guy on the street, and I used to tell my clients this before I ever listened to him, is that you're in things. Like Simon, he wasn't my client, but I would tell him that you have to, or Dean, he was my client. I said, you're in technology, and if you want to do things, then stay in things that you touch, that you see, that you understand trends, that you can see move up and down. It's not insider trading. You got to be careful of that, but you're trading on what you know best. So you're not setting things, you're just analyzing what's going on in the marketplace. And I said, so if you want to trade some tech stocks, like he liked NVIDIA, he used to talk about it all the time, their graphic chips and what they had going on, because he was with Extreme Network and some others, and he did technology, and he worked for a firm. But again, he understood their graphic chip, and he thought, this is years ago, in 14, I think, he said, I'm buying NVIDIA. But then he went into airlines and other things, and I said, you're already in them with graphic chips and that, because chips go in everything. So stay with what you know, technology. And he lost money trying to go into airlines and that. And I said, you do this, and then we'll carve out the rest of your portfolio, and you can trade the technology portion, and I'll do everything outside of technology. And that was our agreement, that we'll position the portfolio. He can buy these stocks in technology and that, and he can trade that part, and then we would hedge and integrate and diversify his portfolio. And so he would do what he knew, and then we would use all the managers to fill out his portfolio. So I used to tell this to doctors and that, if you want to do it, then do things in the medical field. Things that you know about. And you see a device, and you like the device, and you think it has prevalence, you can buy the stock. So I said, do that, and then we'll trade around what you do. And so it wasn't insider trading. They got red papers or something, or this was getting done and that. And so they stayed in their lane, and I could do everything else. And so that's how I work with them. Whether you're a lawyer and you want to invest in legal things, that's fine. You do that, or you're a realtor and you want to do the real estate part of your portfolio, and I'll do everything outside of that. I'll help you with the REITs and everything else that you might not be as well, and you invest in single family homes, or you have some multifamily structures and that, or you have some commercial real estate, you own a strip mall or whatever. Okay, I'll work around everything else. So you can do that, and that's that part of portfolio you controlled, and I controlled everything else. And that way we work together as a team, learning how to be a team with the client. You're not cutting things off. You're putting in place so they can be successful, and you can be successful, and you and the client can work together as a effective team. Effective team. And the end goal is to end up with the best life possible. They flourish, you flourish. It's a win-win. And that's how I went about things, and that's how I worked with my partner David in that. I would help him out and give him feedback on his banking stuff and that at times. But he didn't integrate me enough, I thought, into his banking. He should have, but he didn't. But I integrated him into my stuff and kept him up to speed, and, made sure that he was positioned correctly so he looked intelligent. Sometimes he stumbled, and I would have to, fill in. But again, that's how you're supposed to support each other, and you end up in the best place possible. My situation, to me, I consider a nightmare. It's not anywhere that I presume to be. I never saw my life ending up where I am now, meaning in the house for where I am 20 years and struggling for this and that. I pictured myself being way beyond any of that. But anyways, so I'm out here on the North Shore, and I don't know how all this is integrating. And the thing is, you have Lakeshore Drive that cuts off in Rogers Park, even way before Rogers Park begins, basically before, I would say, on the far south side of Rogers Park, if it is even Rogers Park where it begins, but say the far south side of Rogers Park. And then you have Sheridan Road and Green Bay Road that go up north. But the problem is getting from the highway, which I used to take 94 down, and then I would take Dempster over. And I would take Dempster to go to Northwestern, and I have to shoot over a little bit. But the thing is, there is no signs on 94 talking about Northwestern or getting there, and that's a main artery. And the thing is, the government doesn't correlate correctly the feed from east-west. Everything is moving north-south, but very little is moving east-west. And so there is an extremely poor integration. As I'm here, central is Deerfield Road, and so I'm here in Highland Park. But they don't integrate things correctly. There is a very poor east-west, and that's why people on the west don't use the lakefront much, because there's not this movement east-west. Everybody is moving north-south primarily, and this causes a problem. And it causes stagnation, and it causes for these areas not to integrate properly. And so you end up with these problems. And so they need to figure out off of these arteries when they go north-south, how to integrate the east-west. And that's what I was talking about with the high-speed rail. And when they go east-west, how they integrate the north-south. And they don't think about that, but you have to integrate. So when you got it going one way, you have to figure out how you get it going the other way. Because you get a lot of north-south movement, but you don't get a lot of east-west movement. And so you get a lot of flow into, like here, they flow into Sheridan to go down to Lakeshore Drive to take it down into the city. So part of it flows down Green Bay, flows down into Sheridan, and then they take that down. The other part flows into 94, and they go up that way. And then in the middle here, you have the Metro, which we took up from the city to go to Ravinia up here, me and Jen. And so it was nice taking, and we took the train back. But again, this is here, downtown Highland Park, where I don't even want to think about this is where risky business was. This wasn't known for violence or anything else. This is known, but people don't know about the shopping district. And the funny thing is, kids from Northwestern University, they don't go and explore. Part of going to Lake Forest College, which is further out, is to come down and experience these communities. But the Highland Park, Deerfield, and others don't really interact with the universities and don't interact with the student population, Northwestern Medicine. Now, you have medical staff, but I'm talking with the student body in that. And so night ministry lighting up, the night tickets on sale. Yeah, this was my coach's bank. The first bank of Highland Park, he coached my baseball team, and we built a pitcher's mound out of clay and had to press it down in the right arc and everything else, because we had it has to slope up, and it can only be a certain height, and it has to be a certain distance, and you know, you run the pitcher's mound out based on leg extension and so on. But it was nice. He managed the bank, and then you have Chase in that. But this is all risky business, and this is where the downtown Highland Park Theater I used to go to all the time. It was cheap. It was over here. But the thing about it, it had used airline seats. Yeah, the seats from airplanes where the tray comes down from the back of the seat. They used to have the Highland Park movie theater here, and they used to have the airline seats. I thought it was awesome. I love sitting in the airline seats in the movie theater. And it was cheap. And Marley Matheson, she used to work the ticket booth, and I never knew she was deaf. She had incredible lip reading. And when she talked, she didn't sound impaired. And it was great watching her. And then when I saw her, she worked in a theater. And she went into theater. She worked in the theater. Marley Matheson worked. She was a ticket girl in the Highland Park Theater. And she worked from a ticket girl and used that to move up into Hollywood. So she worked at a movie theater. If you love movies, get into the cherry pit and work at a movie theater. And if that's what you want a career, work. If you want to be on stage, and you work at a theatrical stage theater, be the ticket person at a theatrical, be the usher at a theatrical stadium, like, you know, the Cadillac Palace in Chicago or something. I don't know where the theaters are on the North Shore. Truly, I don't know if there's any theatrical theaters on the North Shore, but Ravinia, it can do theatrical plays. So on that stage, it's not only concerts, but they can have, now you can't from the lawn, they would have to have TVs, but we used to come down here in high school, and this is Highland Park Beach. And you can see the clouds are dark over the lake. And it must be because of atmospheric moisture. It would make sense that they're over a body of water, and that the clouds would be denser over a body of water. but the clouds are dark. This is Lake Forest Beach. And so I don't know if they have boating. I haven't been down to the beach since I was senior year in high school, I think. Maybe my freshman year of college before I went to Arizona, I think was the last time. So in 1988, when I was going to Arizona. So my second year be my sophomore year out of high school, sophomore year in college that summer of 88. The first half in May, I think, was when I was down on Lake Forest Beach, Highland Park Beach. Lake Forest has its beach too. But this is right off of the lake. But again, they could have things where they invite university students, but Ravinia can build out a theater, truly. And then that theater can be fully enclosed in the winter. So it can be open air during the summer, and if it rains out in that, it can be closed air. And we were doing that with Navy Pier. That was mine and Bill's idea. I don't know which, but we were in a rollout and enclosed the outdoor patio for the winter. So we were in an enclosed outdoor patio on Navy Pier because it got too cold, but we needed all the extra seating. And so we were in an enclosed patio for the winter. And we would heat it and everything else, but I didn't get to that build-out stage. But we were in a build-out an enclosed patio where we can open it up for the winter, and if it was raining out, we have a system that would roll out a cover for the patio. So if it was raining out, we still have use of the patio. We needed the patio even if it was raining. We needed the outside seating all year round. So we were going to get a thing that rolled out, and it would roll out on these, you would say arms, but it would roll out on these legs that would be set up, and it would roll out and then contract, fully fold back and open up. And so we could put the poles in the ground and then take them out of the ground, put them in, and then the roof rolls out across, and then it contracts. But they could be permanent legs or temporary, where you can remove them. So if they impede the view. So anyways, so they can do that, and they can have a huge outdoor theater at Ravinia, and they can do all kinds of plays. That includes opera. You can do musical plays, you can do opera, you can do, that means Fiddler on the Roof, I think it's an opera, maybe. But Tennessee William has plays, he used to write plays. And so there are traditional plays, there are musicals, there are operas, which is a form of musical. You can do a rap play. You can do a rock and roll play. You can use all kinds of music, not just classical, where they use the classical with the opera. But again, I saw Swinging Todd, and that was great. And again, that was somewhat of a traditional / kind of a musical. But again, they can build out the theatrical community and at Ravinia, and it can go all year round, and they should make that all year round for winter concerts and everything. So it's things to do in the wintertime, so things don't die, and there's culture in the wintertime, and that creates activity. And this road goes into downtown Deerfield from Central Avenue. I used to work at a bank, Horizon Federal, that's not here anymore. But again, it was in Highland Park. And is it right? Yep, that's my old bank right here. Here's Horizon Federal. This is where I used to work. It was a savings and loan, and it was doing very well, but all the savings and loans went bust. But it's a great concept, and they need to bring savings and loans back. I believe in the savings loan. We worked and focused on just mortgages. That was our big thing, just community mortgages. We didn't do investments or anything else. It was just community mortgages. And then we offered CDs and so on, and that's how we offered CDs and that. But basically mortgages and CDs, certificates of deposits, and that's all we did. And we offered a good checking and savings account. But again, that was where I worked, and I moved up as a teller, and it was great. I really enjoyed working for them. My bosses were two females. My direct boss she was the senior teller, was a female, and then the assistant manager was a girl, an older lady from Germany, and she was awesome. And then my main boss was a Arab lady, and I don't know, I think she might have been Persian. She was, I think, Iranian, but she was the head boss, the Iranian lady. So she was Persian, and that was back in 80s when I worked there. So, and she was Arab and Iranian, and she was she was managing the branch. So she must have been pretty swift. I didn't interact with her a lot. My other people did, but I moved up to senior teller. But anyways, it was nice working in the bank. I really enjoyed working in the bank, and we got preferred checking and other benefits being part of the bank. And then I had a black girl I worked with. I don't know where she is, but the thing is, they had to close out her checking account because she bounced too many checks. They should have taken her into financial literacy, but she was really good employee, but she was poor with managing her finances. Truly poor managing her finances. Like, I guess Mayweather is not good at managing his money. But that's why you hire money managers, good ones, like Oprah did. She wasn't good at managing her finance. She had this white guy, the first guy, white guy, scammed her, and she fired him. And the second one taught her how to sign her checks and made her more financially literate, truly. And he managed her portfolio and made her very wealthy. He did an awesome job. So the first guy, who was white, wasn't ethical. The second guy was highly ethical. So, and he did an outstanding job, and thank God Oprah caught him early when she was smaller and got rid of him. But she understands what it's like to have a bad advisor and to get cheated. So, but she found a good one, and he taught her a lot. And so, but she knew, I'm not good at finance. I need somebody else who can run that part of my operation. And so that was a very smart move, because that made her very successful. And she did other things, like she would always monitor what the audience was saying, surveying, and she would adjust things. In the green room, people didn't like the food as much, and so she adjusted the food in the green room and so on. But so she could get good guests. She didn't want guests to have bad experiences, and so she would adjust things, making sure things were appropriate. So when she's early on and that, so she was very responsive. She was very hands-on, understanding and running the operations in that aspect. And so she was responsive and adjusted things, and that's why she was the number one talk show. So she was very good at managing the aspects of the talk show. Not the financial part of it, but interacting with the guests, getting the guests, interacting with the guests, interacting with the audience. And that's really where she's very strong. And if she is doing her stuff, she should just continue on with her expertise, and she could start other talk shows. And maybe she can mentor Jennifer Lawrence, because Jennifer Lawrence seriously needs some serious help. And maybe Oprah can mentor her and help her tweak her stuff, because she does need tweaking. And Oprah could be a consultant. Truly, Oprah can consult to talk shows. She knows what she's doing. She knows what she's talking about. As long as she stays in that aspect, she's very good at the talk show thing, and she could have a talk show consulting business. Stedman, he writes books, and I don't know exactly what on, because I've never read any of his books, but he writes books. So, on different topics. He could write a book on talk shows. He could write Oprah's biography. So, again, I don't know, or their biography as a couple. But, again, her producer was an Indian lady who my mom was going to work for. And she lived out here, I think, in Highland Park. So she lived out here on North Shore, and that the producer was an Indian lady. So I guess she must have been gifted, because the show was #1, so she must have been very good at what she did. So her behind the scenes was an Indian lady, and that means maybe they could produce shows in India. Oprah and the Indian lady who was her producer, maybe they have a forte into the Indian market. Maybe. I don't know if she understands the Indian market well. She might be too far removed, but maybe not. And maybe they can get into the Indian market. It's something they can venture into. So, again, there's a big Indian market in Streamwood and Schaumburg and so on. And so the largest segment of the Asian population is Indian in America. So, anyways, I'm heading into Deerfield. This is where they had the train scene in with Tom Cruise, and they had the famous train scene in Risky Business. And that underpass didn't used to be there, and they added the underpass so the train didn't interrupt traffic. Smart move, because it used to block traffic in downtown, and they added the underpass so the train would never block traffic again. So they made an underpass so traffic could flow smoothly without the train interrupting. Better for the station as well. So anyways, this is where I spent my 8th grade through high school, and older than that, and spent years on the North Shore here. So I had friends, like my friend, where's Pete Rossi's house? I think I passed it already, but again, I had good times with them. But really, my junior in that, initially I liked growing up in Deerfield, but I was pulled out of here and moved into the city at the end of my sophomore year. And junior and senior, I lived in the city. So not until later did I come back. So I really wasn't a North Shore person per se. I only spent 3 years, my 8th grade year, freshman year, and sophomore year here. Most of my whole time I spent in the city. So I'm a city boy that spent some time in the suburbs. That's why I always go back to the city, because I spent so much time in the city, a large segment of my life in the city. So I just naturally get drawn back into the city. That's where I was born, that's where I was raised, and I moved out here for a short period of time. Now I've been in Buffalo Grove, but I always worked in the city, and I didn't spend any really much time in the burbs. So I just naturally drawn back, and I've been making the drive since high school back and forth from the burbs to the city. So to me, it's no big deal. And here's the entrance to the tollway going eastbound. Lake Cook has the tollway where you can get on 294, and I think the 94 that goes into the freeway from here. If you want to take it, it's a quick way to get to the freeway. So you pay a toll and you go right to the freeway. or you can go to 294. So that should say 94/294 south, 94 east, 294 south. But it doesn't say 294 there, but it is 294 south. But it only says 94. It's 94 east, and because east it goes to the lakefront, towards the lakefront, and 294 south, but it doesn't say 294 south, but it is 294 south. So now we're in Riverwoods. This is where all the trees are, and in the summertime when I cross over that Saunders Road into here, it gets cooler, truly. And this used to be a big golf course right here. They did a housing development, but they didn't keep the golf course. And I don't know if they integrated the golf course. I think they got rid of it. But anyways, it used to get much cooler because of all the trees. So in the summertime, it was more moist and cool. So when I crossed over Saunders into Riverwoods, river and woods, there's a river up here, Des Plaines River. So it got its name, River and Woods. It was a wooded area that had a river. Riverwoods. Makes sense to me, right? Deerfield. Deer in the field. Deers in the field. Deer field. Now it goes back to the joke that I grew up with. Port wine, but port and wine is more of a brandy. Anyways, off of that, getting back to the joke, so an Indian man is talking to his children, and the children ask him, so how did we get our names? And he said, well, one day I was with your wife. I was with your mom, and when we were making you, we saw a deer, and the deer was running, and so you are running deer. And then when I was with your mom, when I was making you, meaning they were having physical procreation, interaction in the woods, they were Indians, Native Americans, and the joke is, something bear. And so your name, Standing Bear.